We have an in-studio guest, which is a rarity these days. We're still playing in pandemic mode here, I think. We used to have guests all the time in the studio. Now everyone's on the phone, but welcome. Melissa Lantsman is in the studio. She is second in command to Pierre Poilievre in the Federal Conservative Party, deputy leader as well. We were joking during the break. I said, should something happen to Pierre Poilievre, like him being hit by a meteor or something, you'd be stepping up. You'd be the leader of the party.
Yeah, well, we're going to make sure that nothing happens to Pierre Poilievre so he can be the next prime minister.
Look, the last time I had someone from the federal Conservatives here, I think it was Erin O'Toole. So we're going back a while. We've not really spoken a whole lot to, I don't know why. It just worked out that way. So A, I'm happy that you're here. And secondly, the question is, what are you doing in Montreal?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me here, and it's great to be in studio. I spent a lot of time on your sister station in Toronto, and it's good to be in studio. But look, we're here, and we're meeting with the community. I think Conservatives have gotten a great response right across the country, in every province, in every region. That's no different here, and we're seeing some movement on the ground with communities looking for an alternative to the Prime Minister, and we're here to talk to them about their issues.
So you're meeting with a lot of different groups. You have a pretty tight schedule here before you actually leave to go back. I know you've met with a couple of community groups, women's groups. You were at a law firm today. You've done a couple of those here. Where's this all coming from and why now?
Look, we've met with the business community, with lots of communities on the ground in places like in Mount Royal and in places like Westmount. Where's it all coming from? It's a response to a community that is looking for a change, a community that has decided that the Prime Minister is not worth the cost, and the community that is looking around to park their vote somewhere where they can have a say and where their voice matters. And we think that the perfect place to park that vote is with the Conservative Party that's going to make a big change in Canada after the next election.
So I think with respect to Montreal anyway, support for the Conservatives is not necessarily, it goes back many, many years when, of course, Brian Mulroney was Prime Minister. Things might have been a little different then, Stephen Harper to a degree. But lately, I think it might be fair to say lukewarm might be the reception, certainly as far as Pierre Poilievre's leader is concerned. What are you finding the reception has been like so far with the people you have met with?
Well, look, he's spent some time in the city before. He's been here a couple of times. I know he'll be back in the near future. My reception has been great. It's been a very, very warm welcome from many community groups. There's a lot of invitations to come back, so we might just do that in the coming weeks. And I think there are people that are looking to get engaged politically. They don't see their voice mattering within the sort of traditional fold of liberal politics in the city of Montreal. They're looking for an alternative, and I'm here to hear from them.
So one of the things, and this happened to you, you are a Jewish member of the party, and you had your own office vandalized, right? That's been a problem there. It's been a problem basically across the country. You've tried to address it. What is the situation now? And what are you finding when you talk to the Jewish community, for example, here? What are they saying to you?
Well, the Jewish community here and in Toronto, in Vancouver, in Calgary, it is no different anywhere. If you're part of the Jewish community in Canada today, you are terrified. And you are terrified at the direction of the government. It's implicit. Frankly, the fact that the government that has allowed this to happen in our streets, the hate, the vitriol, the fire bombings of schools, of synagogues, of community centers, the chants of hatred, you cannot be part of the Jewish community or, frankly, any freedom-loving Canadian looking at this saying that this is normal, this is what's accepted in this country, and we are okay with this. And that's been the case here. We've heard it loud and clear from the community, and we want to make sure that the next government is going to take this issue seriously. So what is happening in our streets does not happen anymore to any community in this country.
We talk about what's happening in our streets municipally. I had the police chief in here not that long ago talking about the fact that they had stepped up patrols. This goes back, unfortunately, about a month ago, and we tend to forget about it a couple of weeks later when it doesn't happen every day. Has the federal government sort of fallen down on the job as far as this is concerned, as far as you're concerned?
Look, I think you had a federal government that's almost lost their voice. They were quite vocal when it came to protests that they didn't agree with, and they've been absolutely silent on protests that they've implicitly said are okay. We have seen protests in my own neighborhood. Protests. I've seen the video footage of what has happened in Montreal over the last number of weeks, and even last week of people chanting for the death of their fellow Canadians. It is the most un-Canadian thing that I've ever witnessed in my entire life here. Not as a politician, but as a Canadian whose parents came to this country to build a life, to build a society, to have my fellow Canadian chanting for my death in a government that can't find the gall to say anything about it. I find that not only offensive, but entirely un-Canadian.
You know, I think part of the criticism of the Liberal government, of the Justin Trudeau government, is the idea that they didn't seem to be able to make up their mind from day to day as to who to criticize, who to point out, who to say it's okay to demonstrate, but it's not okay to go beyond that and have hate speech. I don't think that's changed very much, has it?
No, they haven't put their markers down, and in fact, it's worse than that. It's more sinister than that. I think they played both sides of this issue, and they've done it in the past. And it turns out that you can take both sides of this issue by sending one group of MPs into mosques to say one thing, and a group maybe of other Jewish MPs into synagogues and Jewish communities to say an entirely different thing. And at the end of the day, it looks like a government that stands for absolutely nothing. I think that's changed today. I think the government has very much picked a side. We've seen the recent news of the government voting against Israel at the United Nations. We've seen the government stop sales to Israel, or export permits on non-lethal military equipment to Israel. We saw a picture of a Liberal foreign minister from this city alongside another Jewish MP from Toronto, holding hands, caressing the hands of Mahmoud Abbas, who is in the 19th year of his 4-year term, who has given money to families that have killed innocent Jewish civilians in Israel, who has denied the Holocaust, who has denied October 7th coming. You have a picture of them caressing hands. That's picking a side to me, and I think that they've picked the wrong side of history.
When I ask you about the groups you have met with, and you're not done, you're meeting with more groups tomorrow, you're speaking to a synagogue here. When you walk in that room and they know who you are and they know what you represent and who you represent, what's the first thing they bring up? What do they want to talk to you about?
Well, the first question that I always get, it's not necessarily around the Jewish community or what they've been facing or what that particular community has been facing. It's things like the cost of living. The taxes are too high. The houses are too expensive. Crime is out of control. Those are the issues that are brought up, and those are the issues that we're speaking to all Canadians about. But in these groups, it's been a very, very warm welcome. It's been a question of not if there's going to be a change in the election, when there's going to be a change, and everybody wants to know when that next election is. That's the question I get the most.
I'm wondering how many of those people will come up to you and say, "What's Pierre Poilievre really like?" Do you get some of that too?
Of course, I get some of that,
What do you tell them?
And I'm able to tell them that I've known Pierre for a very, very long time. I think he's a guy who says what he means. I think that he'll always give you an answer. Maybe you won't agree with every single one of them, but he'll never skirt around the issue. And he's focused on 4 priorities that Canadians across the country are focused on, and that's axing the tax and building the homes and fixing the budget and stopping the crime.
One thing not mentioned in that list is immigration, which is a big issue here in Quebec. Just today, we had our premier meet with Justin Trudeau. Quebec, according to our premier, wants to have full control of immigration for its own purposes, for, as the minister said, as the premier said today, for the Quebec nation. I'm curious, what is the Conservative take on this as far as immigration is concerned?
Look, I think the consensus on immigration has been broken, and it's been broken by a Liberal government that broke the system. I think we've got we've got a situation where if you're promised the Canadian dream and you come here and you should be able to afford a house and get a good job and maybe live in a safe neighborhood and put your kids through school the same way that my parents came to this country in the mid 70s. I think that deal has been broken with Canadians, and we've got to look at ways to tie the numbers of immigration to the houses that are available on the market. We have a serious shortage, so a mathematical formula on immigration tied to housing starts, on making sure that we credential people or at least give them an answer on whether they can work in their profession or to the scope of their practice when they get here. We've got to be able to offer the Canadian dream if that's what we're promising people who come here.
Does that include limiting the number of people who can come here, or those who come here as asylum seekers?
Well, it includes building a formula where the people that do come here are able to attain the life that we promise them, and that's going to be tied again to housing starts and to credentialing of our professionals like nurses and doctors.
So that's an interesting word, credentialing, because we know the system is so basically broken now that what should take 6 months or 3 months to get done can take, in fact, years to get done. I imagine that's one of the things that you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Changing.
It's something that we need to fix. We've had a Red Seal program in this country for a long, long time. We want to create the same thing with the professions, a Blue Seal program where you can get an answer very quickly on whether you can work here. I gotta tell you something. I'm a daughter of an uncredentialed engineer who drove a cab who came here in '75, and he never worked as an engineer. He was never able to be credentialed in this country. He did what he had to do. We have that same problem 50 years later, and we got to get it fixed if we're going to build a future for people who want to come here, who want to live here, who want to build a life here.
I know we're going to run out of time. I do have one other thing I want to bring up, and that's this idea, when it comes to Quebec, we're unique. We have our issues with things like Bill 21 and Bill 96, and people typically tend to avoid, politically anyway, stepping into that trap. But with respect to those, we just had Bill 21 now ratified here. We had a Quebec Court of Appeal suggest it's perfectly okay to use the notwithstanding clause, right? And go ahead and enforce this rule. And I said to you before we began talking, when we were off air, in Toronto, you have police wearing turbans, and you told me they actually have, what do they have in Toronto?
Yeah, they've got, look, the Toronto Police has an emblem on turbans, and there's been a long-standing history of everybody serving in the police force in our schools, and teaching in our schools. That's the case in Toronto.
That's now against the law here. So when it comes down to, look, to be honest, the Conservatives are doing better in Quebec now than I think they've done in recent memory anyway, actually ahead of the Liberals if you look at the last polling results from earlier in this week. But at some point, you have to weigh in on those issues. Bill 21, Bill 96, where's the party on that?
Look, we'll have our colleagues in Quebec weigh in when the question comes to Conservatives. What we're doing here is we're seeding the ground and speaking to communities about the things that matter to them, lowering taxes, building homes.
But does that come up? Has that come up for you in the meetings you have had so far?
It actually hasn't. It hasn't come up in all that much. I think there is a natural concern about the hatred that is out there between communities, between the Jewish community and the Muslim community, between the tension between some of the French and English, the Sikh and Hindu community at home. There is a lot of tension out there in Canada. We're speaking to that, and we're speaking to, I think, what Canadians are speaking to us about.
I want to thank you for coming in. Welcome back to Montreal.
Thanks for having me.
Enjoy the rest of your time. It was a pleasure meeting you. Thanks so much. And please come back again, or perhaps have Pierre come back when he's in town. We'd love to have him on the show.
I certainly will.
Thank you so much.